Hi Vera, how are you? I have another book, a What If You Could book. So this is the last one that I could find. I hope you liked all these, but here it comes. What if you could sniff like a shark? What if one day when you woke up, you found out that overnight you gained an ocean animal superpower? What if you could shapeshift like a giant Pacific octopus, sting like an Australian box of jellyfish, or have some other ocean animal's cool natural ability? How in the world would an ocean animal's superpower change your life? What if you could sniff like a great white shark? A great white shark doesn't sniff the way you do. It swims with its snout straight ahead, forcing water into its nostrils and through short tubes. Before the water flows out again, it passes folds of skin packed with scent-sensing cells. Boy, that's hard to say. Scent-sensing cells. These send messages to the shark's brain. That's how the shark smells what's in the water. Wounded animals are easier to hunt, so a great white is always sniffing for blood. It can smell even a tiny amount up to 3 miles away. Ooh. Great white sharks are most common in oceans where the water is between 54 and 75. If you could sniff like a great white shark, you wouldn't need directions to find the donut shop. Oh, what you should know about sharks. As long as 21 feet and they weigh up to 2,400 pounds. They live for about 70 years and they eat mainly fish, seals, and dolphins. A baby great white shark is called a pup. It develops inside an egg in its mother's body. At first, the pup gets the food it needs from its egg's yolk, and when it leaves its egg, it continues to grow inside its mother for another 12 to 18 months. That's a year and a half. And during this time, it eats undeveloped eggs, even some of its siblings. At birth, it's already 5 feet long and weighs about 75 pounds and has a mouth full of sharp teeth. I wonder why a great white shark's body has a tall dorsal fin. Well, without it, each strong side-to-side sweep of the shark's caudal fin would roll it over. The dorsal fin keeps a swimming great white's body upright. You can see on the top of them, that's the dorsal fin they're talking about that keeps it from rolling over. And then there's this pectoral fin on the sides, and that helps it to swim in the right direction. Then at the way back tail, you see the caudal fin, and that's what keeps it sweeping back and forth and pushes it forward through the water. And there's those teeth, and then the nostril. That's where it sniffs from. If you could sniff like a great white shark, you could pinpoint smoke in time to prevent forest fires. The giant Pacific octopus. What if you could shapeshift like a giant Pacific octopus? That body is boneless. The only hard parts are its parrot-like beak around its mouth and 2 plate-like shells inside its head, where the muscles attach. The rest of its big body is like a muscular balloon with flexible arms. So a giant Pacific octopus can fit through anything bigger than its largest hard body part, which is its beak. It can even squeeze through an opening as small as a soda pop can. The giant Pacific octopus is most commonly found in shallow water. If you could shapeshift like a giant Pacific octopus, you'd never need a gate to slip through the fence. There it is. It's kind of an orange color. The main body is called the mantle, and it's about 24 inches long, but it can be as big as 30 feet across between fully spread arms. That's huge, and it weighs 600 pounds. They live to be about 4 years old, and they eat mostly clams, scallops, and fish. A giant Pacific octopus baby is called a hatchling, and it develops inside of an egg as tiny as a grain of rice. Its mother lays about 100,000 eggs and sticks them along the walls of her den. She guards her eggs until the young hatch out about 7 months later. Only about as big as a garden pea, like we eat for dinner, each hatchling swims to the surface. It floats there for 3 months, eating what it can catch and growing bigger. Then it sinks back to the ocean floor to continue feeding and growing. You ever wonder why a giant Pacific octopus has a large siphon? It's because that siphon is the body part that the octopus uses to jet away from danger. The rest of the time, the siphon is simply part of the octopus's breathing process. Water enters through an opening in the mantle and passes its gills, which take out the oxygen, and then the water flows out through the siphon, except when the octopus needs to move fast, and then its muscular mantle squeezes and squirts water out the siphon, kind of like a garden hose. At the same time, the octopus can release ink into the squirting water, and that creates a dark cloud that hides the octopus while it makes its getaway. Hoo-hoo. If you could shapeshift like a giant Pacific octopus, you could easily squeeze onto a crowded sofa. What if you could sting like an Australian box jellyfish? An Australian box jellyfish has as many as 60 tentacles, stringy, flexible parts hanging from its box-shaped body. These tentacles can stretch out as far as 10 feet. Each one is covered with around 5,000 stinging cells. If the tentacles are touched or even just brushed against, these stinging cells uncoil, zap. Wherever one makes contact, it stabs, injecting poison that's deadlier than a cobra snake. Even a tiny amount causes extreme pain. Australian box jellyfish are mainly found in warm surface water close to the coasts, I guess in Australia. If you could sting like an Australian box jellyfish, you'd be a crime-fighting hero. A baby Australian box jellyfish has different names at different stages. Females release their eggs into the ocean, and when an egg hatches, the baby is called a larva. Soon the larva settles to the sea floor and attaches to coral or to a rock, and then the larva changes shape to look just like a tiny sea anemone. During this stage, it's called a polyp, and it feeds on plankton, which are tiny living things in the water. After a few months, the polyp goes through a special type of reproduction called budding. This produces lots of adult jellyfish. These separate from the polyp and swim away. The adult box jellyfish is up to 10 inches across and weighs up to 4 pounds. They live about 1 year, and they eat mainly fish, shrimp, krill, and arrowworms. I've never heard of an arrowworm. Do you ever wonder why an Australian box jellyfish has so many eyes? I didn't know they had so many eyes. But look in the picture, it shows lots of eyes. The jellyfish doesn't see the way people do, but it has lots of eyes, clusters of 6 along the lower edge of each side of its boxy body. These eyes are simply to sense light from dark. They let the jellyfish see all the way around itself so it can avoid floating debris or big predators such as sunfish. It can also spy when small prey comes close enough to sting and eat. If you could sting like an Australian box jellyfish, you'd be a quarterback who never gets sacked. Oh, what is this thing? A coconut crab. What if you could snap like a coconut crab? The snapping force of an adult coconut crab's massive claws is the same as a lion's bite. Scientists discovered this using special equipment that compares size to strength. With such force, it's no wonder the coconut crab is able to feast on hard foods like coconuts. This crab also snaps its powerful claws to warn other crabs to stay away and defend itself against predators. Coconut crabs are found on islands in the Pacific and Indian Oceans. See, that's where you are right now, is near the Indian Ocean. Christmas Island hosts the world's largest population of these coconut crabs. Christmas Island is out in the middle of the Pacific. I don't know why they called it Christmas Island, but they did. If you could snap like a coconut crab, you'd easily make yourself the coolest Halloween costume ever. A baby coconut crab is called a larva. It develops inside a tiny egg stuck to its mother's stomach. After several months, its mother walks into the ocean in time for her babies to hatch. Each crab larva floats away and feeds on plankton as it continues to develop. After about a month, it becomes a juvenile crab. Then it has a hard body cover, covering the front of its body but not its abdomen. So it finds a shell on the seafloor and pushes its abdomen inside. So it climbs into an empty shell. How about that? As the juvenile eats and grows bigger, it keeps switching shells for one that is bigger. Finally, the coconut crab develops its own hard shell, and now it's an adult coconut crab, and then it moves ashore and lives on land. They're up to 16 inches long, and they weigh up to 10 pounds. That's a big crab. They are the world's biggest crustacean. They are cousins of lobsters and shrimps. They can live as long as 50 years. They eat mainly fruit and nuts, especially coconuts. Once a year, a coconut crab hides for 6 to 8 weeks. Hiding is how the crab protects itself while it is shedding its outer crab shell. A new carapace, that's what they call it, is already under the old one, but it is soft at first, and that lets this covering stretch to fit the crab's bigger body. Crab hides out until its new coat becomes armor hard. If you could snap like a coconut crab, you'd easily lead expeditions through extra thick jungles. What if you could puff up like a starry pufferfish? A starry pufferfish can easily expand to 2 or 3 times its normal size, so it puffs up. The pufferfish puffs up by quickly gulping a lot of water into its elastic stomach. Its skin, which is made of wavy folds, also stretches, so when a hungry predator like a tiger shark swims close, the fish puffs into a ball that's hopefully too big to bite. Getting bigger fast makes a good defense. These pufferfish live near coral reefs. If you could puff up like a starry pufferfish, you'd be the main attraction in the parade. The adult is about 21 inches long and weighs around 9 pounds. It has lots of polka dots on it. It lives up to 8 years and mainly eats sea urchins, sponges, crabs, and coral. A baby pufferfish is called a fry. A female releases 3 to 7 eggs in the warmer water close to shore and then swims away. The eggs float for about a week and then the fry hatch out, but they aren't fully developed yet. A fry's body has a hard shell that protects it for the few extra days needed for its fins to grow. And once that happens, then the shell cracks and falls off, and it's a pufferfish. A pufferfish's eyes aren't always looking in the same direction. That's because each eye can turn separately. So a starry pufferfish can look in 2 different directions at the same time to watch for prey and predators. That might be very handy. If you could puff up like a starry pufferfish, you'd save your friends a spot in the bleachers without breaking a sweat. A firefly squid. What if you could light up like a firefly squid? Firefly squids' bodies are covered with special light-producing organs. Each organ produces a chemical called luciferin, and a protein called luciferase. The reaction between the chemical and protein when they are combined with oxygen from the water gives off a cool blue light, and these lights can be flashed all at once or in patterns to attract a mate. Little light show, right? The light also lures a prey close enough for the firefly squid to catch it with its tentacles. They live deep where the only light that filters down is very faint. If you could light up like a firefly squid, you'd be the spy everyone counts on to send secret messages. They're about 3 inches long, and they weigh just a little bit. And they're live to be about 1 year old. They eat mainly tiny fish. The tentacles are long enough to stretch out into the dark ocean. The light-producing organs at the tentacle tips lure fish prey close. Their fish get very curious about the light and they come close. And then the tentacles have suckers and they snag the prey. And it pulls it close enough for the arms to grab and move it to its mouth. If you could light up like a firefly squid, you'd be the school's star crossing guard. The next one is a loggerhead sea turtle. What if you could armor up like a loggerhead sea turtle? A loggerhead sea turtle shell is its body's armor, and it's hardy enough to protect it from being chomped on by a shark. The turtle shell is formed from about 60 bones, which are part of its rib cage and backbones. These bones are covered with hard, overlapping plates formed from keratin, the same material that makes up human fingernails. Because the main part of its shell is made out of its bones, the turtle's body grows bigger. The armor has to grow bigger with it. Loggerhead sea turtles are found in every ocean, except in the cold oceans like the Arctic and the Antarctic. If you could armor up like a loggerhead sea turtle, you'd never have to worry about slipping on the icy sidewalk. You should know that loggerhead turtles are endangered. That means there's not very many of them left. They grow to be 3 feet long and they weigh as much as 250 pounds. They may be more than 60 years old. Mainly they eat horseshoe crabs, clams, and sea urchins. A baby loggerhead sea turtle is called a hatchling. Each baby develops inside a leathery shelled egg. The female produces the eggs and buries them in a nest that she digs on a sandy beach. One nest may contain as many as 300 eggs. How warm the egg stays determines the hatchling's sex. Warmer eggs produce females, cooler eggs produce males. The eggs hatch after about 60 days, and then each hatchling crawls to the water and swims away. It is on its own to grow up in the ocean. The loggerhead turtle has really big flippers. The turtle uses its flat, broad front flippers to propel itself through the water, and the back flippers act as rudders for steering. Females also use their back flippers to dig a nest hole in the sand for their eggs. If you could armor up like a loggerhead sea turtle, you'd be the best movie stunt person in Hollywood. What if you could enchant like a female deep-sea anglefish? Doesn't look enchanting to me. It looks kind of scary. Let's see, the anglerfish, float along in the ocean depths. Scientists are continuing to investigate its range. Only the female deep-sea anglerfish has a lure to enchant prey. It is formed by a stiff supporting ray in the fin on top of her back. There are tiny glowing bacteria living in a bulb-shaped part at the tip of the lure. That glowing part stretches out just far enough to dangle in front of the fish's big mouth, In the dark ocean depths, the female anglerfish only has to stay still to hide, and then she wiggles her light-tipped lure. Any little fish enchanted enough to come check it out is dinner. Gulp. If you could enchant like a female deep-sea anglerfish, you would be a world-famous hypnotist. A baby deep-sea anglerfish is called a larva. A female releases as many as 1,000,000 tiny eggs at a time. The eggs are within a huge, thin, gelatin-like sheet that floats to the ocean's surface, and there the larvae hatch. As each larva feeds and grows bigger, it lives at deeper and deeper levels down to the ocean depths. Males attached to females stay tiny and are carried along with them, and only the females develop lures. Prey is hard to come by down in the deep ocean, so an anglerfish needs to be able to take advantage of whatever fish it can attract close enough to catch. And that's why an anglerfish needs to have a big mouth that can open really wide, and its stomach can also stretch to hold a big meal. They get it to be up to 30 inches long, and they can weigh as much as 110 pounds. That's huge. They can live around 30 years, and they live on any fish they can catch. If you could enchant like a female deep-sea anglerfish, you'd be the most spellbinding storyteller on the camp trip. What if you could glide like a blue flying fish? When a blue flying fish leaps into the air, its wing-like fins move forward and sideways like a person spreading their arms wide. These fins lock into place with lots of stiff rays for support. Once in the air, its fins let a blue flying fish glide as far as 328 feet in one leap. With any luck, that's far enough to escape a fast, hungry predator, such as a swordfish. Flying fish are found around the world in tropical ocean water. If you could glide like a blue flying fish, even catching the school bus could be an adventure. That's what they look like. Growing up, a baby blue flying fish is called a larva, like most things that live in the sea. When it hatches, and a fry when it's older. Females release as many as 300 eggs at a time. These eggs have many tiny sticky strings that anchor them to seaweed. Each larva hatches in about a week, but it's attached to the yolk sac that was in its egg. It still needs this for food while it develops a little more. By the time the yolk is used up, the larva can feed itself, and then it's called a fry. Still little, it hides among other tiny animals floating at the surface while it feeds and continues to grow bigger. They're not very big. They're only 8 inches long, and they weigh about 4 ounces, and they live to be about 5 years. And they eat plankton in the ocean. During its glide, when it looks like it's flying, the fish eventually sinks back towards the water. The longer section of its tail fin, or caudal fin, touches the ocean surface first. When it beats fast against the water, this longer section launches the fish up into the air again, so it can glide even farther. If you could glide like a blue flying fish, you'd set an unbreakable world record in the long jump. And that's the end of the last book that's about animals like this, by Sandra Markle. I hope you've enjoyed all these books. Next time we'll read something different. I love you. Bye-bye.